empires in the world coming up. Now, what's crazy though is so often the Persian empires are overlooked, particularly the Achaemenid. Like I said, it only seems to be referenced in relation to the wars with the Greeks, as opposed to looking at some of its awesomeness. So I hope to shed some light. And once again, our goal was to make you more informed than many of your peers, which is already the case. So, the Achaemenid Empire, let us begin. Here we see the Persian Empire at its greatest extent for the Achaemenids. We're going to see that much like how Evie was like, hey, Iran comes to my mind, because guess what? Modern day Iran is the heart of the Persian Empire, but we're going to see they're also going to rule through Mesopotamia. They're going to rule through Judea. We talked about one of their rulers, Cyrus the Great, as well, who let the Jews leave Babylon and other places within the empire to go back to their homeland. They're also going to rule Egypt. They're going to rule Libya, even parts into Greece. All right. Now, you don't have to write this. If you were in my class, I would have you go and close your eyes and think about it. All right. Now, we're going to see this in the book of Daniel and the Chronicle of Nabonidus, who was a Babylonian chronicler, historian. The dark night, and there's a banquet taking place. So, a fancy feast, and the king Balthazar says, bring the gold vessels we took from the temple of Solomon so we can feast and sacrifice to our gods. Of course, they're feasting on pork, which was not following kosher for those vessels. And it's just like a terrible situation. And then, as the story goes, a disembodied hand starts writing on the wall, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parson. And basically, it's like, all right, your empire has been weighed, and it is found lacking, and your time is ended. It is the end of our Chaldean or Neo-Babylonian empire. And it's one of those things where, like, if this was a movie or comic book, like the screen would like split in half. Because like, wow, you see the king in there, like probably with his mouth open, the food falling out of his mouth because he's in horror and shock. We would see the soldiers breaking through the gates and going into the city and starting to destroy it. So, what we're going to have is the Medo-Persian Empire starting at this point, ending the Chaldeans. Now, the Medes were one of the main groups of people that lived in Iran, modern-day Iran, back then Persia. And the Persians were the other tribe. And we're going to have one man, Cyrus, uniting those two groups to create one of the strongest empires that history had seen at this time. It's going to be the largest empire that history had seen at this point. They didn't have to write anything about that. So, this is where we do want to start writing a little bit. So the founder of this, we've mentioned him several times, is a man named Cyrus, and is going to get the moniker the Great. And I feel like he's one of the people that deserves that title, the Great. Now, like I said, he's going to start as a small little tribe, and he is going to wind up conquering tons of land. So Media, we have that kind of between, this is where modern Persia is today. Kind of breaking into Iraq, we have Persia right here. So he's going to conquer those places. He's going to conquer the entire Babylonian Empire, which is going to give him all of this territory. He's going to conquer a place called Lydia, which we have here. Now, Lydia is going to be important because they are the people who invent gold, or excuse me, not gold, but they use gold, invent coins. They're the first people to say, hey, let's start making coins for money. And yeah, so he's going to conquer them. And eventually this empire is going to conquer Egypt and Greece. Not all of Greece, but good parts of it. The story about conquest of Egypt, we'll get to that a little bit later on. We're going to see Cyrus is going to be a great conqueror. But he's going to be more than a conqueror. We already know that he let the Hebrews go. Actually, in the Old Testament, he's referred to as Messiah. He's the only non-Jewish person given that title. The only Gentile, as they would. This would be the coat of arms for the Persians, so we're going to see this on the flags quite often. And here is an image of Cyrus. So, you need to know, the founder was Cyrus the Great, and he conquered lots of land. You can shorten all of that. That's simply Cyrus the Great was the founder, and he conquered lots of land. Now, on our next slide, we're going to get to the legend of Cyrus, which once again, you are not going to need to write. There is lots and lots and lots of story time with the Persians, which I just love telling these stories. Because this story in particular is wild. So, it starts with a king. Now, we have a king named Astyages. He was the king of Media. And he was not particularly a kind king, but he receives a vision. He goes and is told that his grandson is going to overthrow him and take the throne. So he's told his grandson is going to overthrow him. Now, he's gone and he winds up having two dreams. The first dream, he's asleep and he sees his daughter lying on the ground. And then out from his daughter sprouts a little tree out of her belly button. And then the tree starts growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And eventually, so I don't know how many of you who have ever seen a cartoon where like you see it like start going zooming out and you wind up seeing the earth and you wind up seeing the thing grow up even bigger than the earth. Last time we were in school, we watched a Wile E. Coyote show and they had that happen. You started growing. Well, in this dream, this tree comes out of his daughter's belly button and winds up growing so big that its leaves cover the earth. He wakes up, says, "Well, that was a crazy dream. Maybe I had some weird mushrooms on my pizza or something last night, because that is not normal." He goes to his wise men and say, "I just had a crazy dream. My daughter had a tree covering out of her belly button, and its leaves grew so much that it wound up covering the whole world. What does that mean?" And the wise man says, "Oh, well, that means your daughter's going to have a son, and he's going to wind up going and creating the greatest empire ever and overthrowing you." Now, how that wise man got that message from a tree growing out of someone's belly button, I do not know. Astyages says, "Okay." Then, a little while later, he has another dream. And this dream is even more wild. Okay? Once again, he's dreaming, but he's dreaming about his daughter. And have any of you ever been in the situation where maybe you're in the movies or you're doing something you really want to do, and like I always think about the movies, and you know how when they sell a soda at the movie theater, it's like gigantic? Like you have like one of those humongous sodas at the movie, and you're going, you're sipping on your soda, you're enjoying the movie, and then you really, really have to go potty. You know what I'm talking about? And you're like, well, I don't want to go, I don't want to miss a part, but man, I really got to go. And you know, you're kind of sitting in your chair, you're doing your pee-pee dance. Well, the dream Astyages has is his daughter winds up really, really having to go pee-pee. And she does. But here's the thing. It keeps coming and coming and coming and coming. She is doing so much pee-pee. And she goes and she goes. And eventually, the dream has her flooding the whole earth with how much she had to go to the bathroom. Ew, right? Crazy. Yeah, it is gross. So Astyages, he wakes up thinking, man, maybe I shouldn't have had that, whole water bottle before going to bed, just trying to stay hydrated. But he goes to his wife and says, I had the craziest dream. I had a dream that my daughter went pee-pee, and she had so much pee-pee that it covered the whole entire earth. And then he goes, he says, oh, well, that means your daughter's going to have a son, and he's going to wind up going and conquering much of the world and being one of the greatest kings ever and overthrowing you. He's like, what? 2 dreams in a row like that? So Astyages comes to a decision. He goes to his daughter and says, all right, you're going to become a priestess of this god. You are not allowed to get married, okay? You're not allowed to get married. Don't do it. Well, as things go, as she's serving as a priestess to their god, the god comes to the daughter. And of course, it's one of those things. this god, he goes, brings her some flowers and chocolates. They wind up falling in love, and they wind up having a child. Remember, this is a legend, all this stuff. Like, probably odds are a god didn't come to a girl and, like, they fall in love and anything. But the daughter gets pregnant. Astyages is furious. He says, I tried to make it so you wouldn't have a kid. Now I'm in a really sticky situation because that kid is going to overthrow me, and I don't want to be overthrown. So he does the only sensible thing. He orders his best general, Harpagus, to kill the newborn. Harpagus always listens to Astyages. He takes the baby. But then he looks down at that cute little baby and goes, oh, so cute. Who could ever hurt you? So Harpagus goes to a shepherd and says, shepherd, take this baby and leave it by the mountainside so it dies. And the shepherd takes the baby because he can't say no to this general. But he looks at the baby and goes, oh, the baby's so cute. Because let's face it, babies are extremely cute. If you've never been around a newborn, you have no idea the cuteness that they have. Well, he and his wife had actually just lost their baby. Their baby had died because back then, because they didn't have hospitals or medicine as well as we do, sometimes babies died pretty young. And so their baby had just died. So he gets an idea. He said, okay, wait a minute. What if we give Harpagus the body of our dead baby and we raise little Cyrus to be our own because they were so heartbroken that their child had died? They said, this is a sign from the gods. We get a kid. So he goes to his wife, tells the idea. She agrees. They raise little Cyrus as their own. They go give the body of their child to Harpagus. Harpagus then, he doesn't look too much at it because he just can't believe this whole thing had to happen. Goes to Astyages and says, the deed is done. The child is dead. But little did he know the truth. Now, the shepherd and his wife are so happy. They have their child and they raise Cyrus as their own. But we're going to need to understand something here. Today we know that everybody's the same. We're all equal. There's nothing that in the inside of us that really makes Evelyn different from Iker, different from Jason, different from Zoe, different from Maddox, different from me. We're all equal. We're the same. But back then they had this belief that if you were royalty, you were actually physically different. There was differences with you, and just you wind up being smarter, more talented, more handsome, more beautiful, all of those things. They said if you're royalty, you are just a better human being, which we know isn't true. We know everybody's the same. But Cyrus is growing up, and he's a remarkable young man. People say, there is no way this is the child of a shepherd and a shepherdess. And he's playing a game with his kids. And I don't know if you guys have ever played games like this before, but Cyrus is playing with his friend, and they're playing a game called King, where basically one person gets to be the boss, the king, and orders everybody around. And, the kids are doing it. They're all taking turns being the king. This one boy, who is the son of a noble, really, really enjoyed it and was happily giving everybody orders. When it was Cyrus's turn to be king, the noble boy, he didn't want to play anymore. Does anybody ever have a situation like that when you're playing with your friends, and then when it's your turn to get to decide, all of a sudden your friends don't want to play as much? Sometimes that happens, I know, with my cousins when I was growing up, that, they liked it their way, but as soon as it was my way, they weren't happy. Well, this happens with that noble boy. And so you know what Cyrus does? He goes and says, all right, if you won't listen, I'm going to give justice like a king would. He has the other boys hold him down, and Cyrus whipped that boy for disobeying the orders of the king. Now, that boy runs home to his parents crying, obviously. Now, how would your parents react if you went and told them that one of your friends had you held down and beat you? Would your parents be happy? No, they would be so mad. They'd be furious. So, of course, especially, this is coming from a shepherd boy, like the lowest of the low, and this is a noble. So they go immediately to Astyages to complain about this terrible Cyrus. The story continues. You still don't have to write. So they bring Cyrus in and they say, Cyrus, why would you whip that boy? That was so wrong of you. And Cyrus goes, isn't that how a king would respond to someone disobeying? And everyone, instead of being like, no, that's naughty, we're like, whoa, that's something a king would say. And then they look a little closer at Cyrus and say, you know, you look a lot like King Astyages. There's something weird going on here. So King Astyages, he goes and says, Harpagus, did you kill that boy 10 years ago? And Astyages, he can't bring himself to lie. He says, no, Cyrus, I couldn't do it. I gave the boy to a shepherd family for them to do the deed. They gave me a body, and I accepted it and thought it was Cyrus, and I told you the deed was done. But no, I did not kill the boy myself. Now, Harpagus was worried. He was upset. But Astyages says, wonderful news! This is so good. I felt so bad about having my grandson killed. Now he is alive and we can enjoy him. He's clearly growing up to be a fantastic young man in my set. Astyages seems so excited, so happy. Were you expecting that? Probably not. So Astyages says, let us have a feast to celebrate how my grandson is still alive. Harpagus is invited and says, oh, Harpagus, bring your whole family so we can celebrate this great news. Astyages meets Cyrus, is impressed with Cyrus, thinks Cyrus is the greatest. But the truth is, Harpagus was not forgiven by Astyages. So you see, Harpagus is there, sitting his meal, and Astyages comes up to him and says, how do you like your meal, Harpagus? And Harpagus says, oh, it's very good, sir, you know, because that's what you say. You know, you just agree and you thank the king for everything, because that's how kings are. They want to be thanked and appreciated. Well, Astyages goes, I notice your son decided not to join you. And Harpagus says, it's really strange. He said he was on his way, you know, that he was going to sit with me, and I'm really surprised he's not there. And Astyages says, do you want to see the animal that was slaughtered for this feast? And Harpagus right now is probably getting a weird feeling like something is not right here. And so Harpagus goes, okay, sure. Astyages snaps his fingers. And you know, the servants, you know, you ever seen those movies where like the servants or the waiters like have that big silver platter and on top there's like that big silver like dome like covering the food to keep it warm? Well, the waiter comes over, lifts up the lid, and on that silver platter was the head and hands of Harpagus' son. Yes, Astyages, in revenge, had Harpagus' son slaughtered and cooked. Harpagus was literally eating his own kid. Gross. Harpagus probably throws up a little bit in his mouth, asks to be excused, and flees the feast. Now, Cyrus, though, is spared. Cyrus grows up, winds up becoming a powerful leader, and Cyrus, would you not believe it, goes and battles against Astyages just like the legend foretold. And Astyages says, Harpagus, I need you to battle Cyrus in this war. Harpagus gets the army ready. Harpagus' army meets on one side. Cyrus' army is on the other. And then Harpagus had never forgotten what Astyages had done. He goes and walks over to Cyrus' side, joining Cyrus' army. He orders his army to do an about face, and then both armies together go defeat Astyages, and Cyrus becomes king of the Medes and the Persians. So there's justice in the end, at least. And that, my cherubs, is our notes for today. Like I said, we had lots and lots of story time with it. Are there any questions